Hi there, and welcome back to Bible Break, our 15 minutes each week. Um, I thought I would be the last person to say this to you, but sit tight, because I think we're going to have to apply a bit of critical race theory to our reading. It's a short reading at the end of Genesis chapter 9. It's about Noah and his sons. So I'm reading from the New International Version, Genesis 9, verse 18. Here we go. The sons of Noah who came out to the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These were the three sons of Noah, and from them came the people who were scattered over the earth. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked in backward and covered their father's nakedness. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan. The lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." He also said, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem. May God extend the territory of Japheth. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be his slave." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. Altogether, Noah lived 950 years, and then he died. So Noah nearly equaled Methuselah's record. And then as you go on into chapter 10, you have the three sons, the lists of the peoples and the tribes that descend from them. We're not going to read chapter 10, but just one or two things I'll point out. With the Japhethites, there's the mention of Magog. And if you look in the book of Ezekiel, in the book of Revelation, Gog and Magog are the outer limits, as it were, the back of beyond. A bit like North Wales, really. We call North Walians down here Gogs. I don't know whether they call us Taffs. I know that the English do. But there we are, Gog and Magog, the outer limits, the back of beyond. Then the Semites, which are towards the end of chapter 10, I'm assuming that the Semitic tribes and races came from them, as in Semitic, anti-Semitic, Jews. But the people and the tribes that are of most interest to us for our reading in chapter 9, at the end of chapter 9, are the Hamites. Because as we saw in brackets in verse 18, the first verse of our reading, Ham was the father of Canaan. So the Hamites, from Ham and the Hamites, follows what? Well, the Canaanites. Now, sit tight, hold tight, because there's a little bit of Bible history here of what's to come. But it is history now, looking back. Which is that the Canaanites, the tribes of which are listed in verse 15 of chapter 10, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, and so on and so forth. They were the tribes, they were the peoples who the Israelites were told to chase from the promised land following the Exodus and the entry into the promised land, these were the peoples that God said to his people to exterminate. And the reason that he gave for chasing them from the land was because they were wicked. He said to his own people, the Israelites, who were also ites, I suppose, but he also said to his people, the Israelites, it's not because you are anything special that you are going to inherit this promised land. You've proved well enough during the course of the last 40 years crossing the desert that there's nothing special about you. But the fact is that the people who are now occupying and inhabiting the land are wicked. At least I have gone some way to training and forming you. So you must chase them, you must fight them, you must exterminate them, and you must occupy the land. What's this got to do with chapter 9? Well, let's go over the story first, because it's a curious little vignette. Following the flood, we see that this great man of God, Noah, is still able to get drunk from the fruit of his vines. And he's lying there now, drunk and naked, as it happens, in his tent. And according to the story here, his youngest son, I believe, even though he's second in the list, his youngest son, Ham, looks in on him, sees him naked, thinks this is hilarious, goes out and thinks he's going to have a bit of a giggle with his two other brothers, Shem and Japheth. But Shem and Japheth don't find it that funny, to say the least, and with some circumspection, they make their way into the tent, doing everything that they can not to gaze on their father's nakedness, and they cover him. When Noah wakes up from his drunken stupor and learns of Ham's disrespectfulness, he takes it really quite badly, and he curses Ham and curses Ham's son, his own grandson, and curses that race, the Canaanites, as we've just seen. Now, you and I might be thinking, used to our modern age and modern ways, well, this is a bit much. Okay, the fella saw his father naked. Is that any reason to curse him? We may be thinking that, what's the big deal here? And some people have inferred from this story that because of the reserve and circumspection with which the Bible itself recounts sexual misdemeanors on the whole, in the old King James Version, if a man knows a woman, that doesn't just mean that he knows her, that means that he has sexual relations with her. So, given the reserve which the Bible customarily uses for recounting sexual relations and even sexual misdemeanors, i.e. not spelling it out generally, some people have affirmed that we've got to do our own spelling out from this. Well, all I would say to that is that it is only an inference. But where the inference might have some substance to it is for the very reason that I've just said, that on its own terms, taken just barely at face value, the story as it's recounted, we may be wondering to ourselves, what's the big deal? Unless something gross actually took place here, we may be inclined to think that this isn't such a thing to be making such a fuss about. Okay. Let's leave that there. Now let me tell you what I think. That the point of the story is just that. We've got to ask ourselves, what is the point of this story? Okay? What is the point of this story? That's what we've got to ask ourselves. And I just told you that the Ham is cursed following this, and his son Canaan is cursed the Canaanite race and the peoples coming from them are cursed. And these are the peoples that the Israelites will have to chase from the promised land, go to war against. Now, it does help if, well, at least it used to, perhaps it's a bit more technical and clinical these days, but it used to help if you didn't like your enemy. And in order not to like your enemy, a bit of propaganda might not go amiss. And so I hope I don't shock you by saying that the Bible, of course, is divinely inspired, but that does not mean that there isn't this human element to it. And we do actually have in the Bible propaganda. Now, when I say propaganda, I don't mean by that to tarnish the Canaanites and the Hamites before them, and Ham with the brush, as this story does. I do not mean that there is that it's the propaganda is totally unsubstantiated, has no foundation. God himself will tell his people, as we look in the books of Joshua and Judges, that these wicked people are in fact wicked and need to be chased from the land. But then if you have a story, you go right back and you find that these have been wrong uns and that these have been bad uns since the beginning. These ites, apart from us Israelites, the ites are shites, They have been bad and they have been wrong uns and wicked from the beginning. Well, that builds up your own propaganda and that, gets you wound up and ready for battle. Hope I haven't shocked you with that. This is one reason why I absolutely love the Old Testament, and I think that the Old Testament is extremely valuable because it shows us the real life, the real existence of a real people, of a real nation, coping with real problems, real difficulties. And the question I suppose we have to ask ourselves, though, is, okay, there's the propaganda against the Canaanites, but what about the Israelites themselves? Are they just a bunch of prejudiced, propagandized bigots? No. There are two major things which I want to bring to your attention, which are in the Bible, to show under God, the Israelite capacity for self-correction. I can't go into detail with all of these, but if you have a look at the books of Ruth and Jonah, two short books in the Old Testament, if you look at the books of Ruth and Jonah, you will see in studying those what there is by way of self-correction, what there is by way of counter-propaganda. And there's a whole lot more than those two books besides. But this second point as well, which I'm going to mention to you now, which proves the Israelites' capacity for self-correction, is the fact that when God says to them that if you behave like the nations that you are chasing out, you will be judged even more severely, has that been edited out of the Bible? No, it has not. The criticism and the propaganda, as I say, which is reserved against the peoples that the Israelites have to chase out of the of the promised land, applies to them if they follow the ways of the nations which they are going to chase and which they are going to fight. Very interesting. Perhaps not critical race theory, but certainly race critical theory. I'll see you next time.